I'm so late. Oh, shoot. I shouldn't have that there. I'm so late. I'm so late. There's so much going on. There's so much going on. Meow! Meow! I'll get you, Gadget. Maggot. Meow! 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 Hello? Is there anybody out there? Is there anyone at all? Oh, I gotta turn on some light. What cat? What is it, cat? What is it, cat? I'm just waiting for more people to come. I'm just waiting for people to come. Um, turn on. Turn on. Turn on. I'm just waiting for more people. Oh, I should see if I have a better copy of this, too. Documents. Last hour. This is really a great thing, you know. I'm glad we're reading this today. I've been meaning to do this for a long time. I should probably use the one that. What, cat? There we go. What is it? There's nothing out there for you. But there's nothing for you to do out there. What the hell? Oh, there's one person here. Hi. It's D Nice. D Nice and Crystal. Once again, I gotta open the chat. Open the chat. Open the chat. Hello. I've been laughing my behind off because we're going we're going towards, well, I mean, for those of you who joined me the other night about April stuff, where the sun is approaching its conjunction to Jupiter, and we've already had the overinflated egos starting to do their thing. It's so funny. We had the Trump indictment thing happen. He was arraigned today. He was it 34 or 36 counts, or 36 felonies, or 34 felonies. So of course not guilty. But you see the archetype there with the sun. The sun is like authority, and then Jupiter is sort of what, cat? It's the overinflation, right? So the sun gets overinflated by Jupiter. And so we have this overreach of authority, or we get this pomp, like this overinflated pomp and whatever. So I'll give it a couple more minutes. I'm sorry I'm late. I was late because I came off a reading. And I guess we'll just go ahead and start. Like, if people want to come, they can come. But this is really important stuff. This essay changed my life. We should talk about Gurdjieff a little bit while we're waiting. I'll pull up on Wikipedia. Gurdjieff was the first guru or esoteric teacher I started working with. Georges Ivanovich Gurdjieff. We don't even know when he was born, or if that was even his real name. Sort of a mysterious figure. I mean, you see here, look at the date they give for his birth. It ranges from 1866 to 1867. He was a genius. There's a wonderful book written about him and his teaching called In Search of the Miraculous, written by one of his disciples, a guy named P.D. Ouspensky, who was Russian. Gurdjieff was from Georgia, not Georgia, not Atlanta, Georgia, but the Caucasus Mountains, Georgia. What we know today is Georgia. So, but Eastern Europe, around Russia and all that. And Gurdjieff was a contemporary of Aleister Crowley, Aleister Crowley. and a bunch of these other, Golden Dawn types. And Gurdjieff was decidedly not a part of that crowd. He developed what was eventually called the Fourth Way. What he did, he called esoteric Christianity, interestingly enough. And there are some key things about Gurdjieff's teaching that to me are still very, very important. So we won't go too much into it, but the three premises basically were that we're not one, we're many. We can't consciously do, right? And we don't remember ourselves. We don't know who and what we are. Cat, you have to choose. Are you going to be out here or be in there? Because these doors aren't staying open. If you want to go in there, you're going to stay in there. Okay. It's where his food is and his litter is, so he can stay in there for a couple minutes. Anyway, you don't need to see all this stuff, really. I mean, it's all interesting. Early years. Anyway, we don't need to go into all that. But one of my old mentors or teachers used to say that Gurdjieff was more than a teacher, but less than a master. I don't know what that means, but Gurdjieff was a pretty wild teacher. So there's a couple of stories I'd like to say really quick, but the crux of the teaching was self-remembering. So whoever has seen my video on Vichara or self-observation, it's the same idea, the same basic idea. We don't remember ourselves. We don't understand or really know our essential nature. And that what we've come to call ourselves, our personalities, are false. We're liars, is what he said. That we've taken on all these identifications, like layers of clothing, and they are what we touch the world with. So no one really sees us. And we don't really see anyone else because we're seeing through a lens of identification, which I talk about, frequently, but we see the same idea in some Eastern teachings, especially my other gurus, Ramana Maharshi and Maharaj Nisargadatta. So, Shan, hello. Hello, Aubrey. Hello. We're talking about Gurdjieff, who was the first spiritual teacher that I got into when I was 12. And he's also probably been one of the most important throughout my whole life still. His teaching's called The Fourth Way, for anyone who wants to do more research on that. But self-remembering is the whole crux of the teaching. And it was the most important facet of it. Like I said, we're not one, we can't do, and we don't remember ourselves. Those were the three things. Now, Gurdjieff, as I said, he was pretty critical of theosophy, which I also grew up in. You probably don't know about theosophy too much, but that was Madame Blavatsky and all that sort of stuff. Gurdjieff was also a contemporary of Aleister Crowley, like I said. And there's an interesting little story about Gurdjieff and Crowley. So Gurdjieff had this Center for the Harmonious Development of Man in France. I forget where it was. Crowley was a drug addict. He had a heroin problem. He went to the Harmonious Center, or Gurdjieff's Center for the Harmonious Development of Man, to work on his drug addiction. I can't remember how long he was there, but it was months. And he apparently was a pain in the ass while he was there, causing lots of trouble, causing lots of mischief, and, being disruptive in general. Excuse me. So, when it was finally time for him to leave, Gurdjieff escorted him out. And Gurdjieff said to him, "You no longer guest here?" Crowley said, No, I'm no longer a guest here. And Gurdjieff said, "So you leave now, you no longer stay?" And Crowley said, "Oh, yes, I'm leaving. What? Gurdjieff then, once he knew that he no longer was obligated to be hospitable, proceeded to just lay into Aleister Crowley. Called him filthy, disgusting scum. Just tore him up and down. And Crowley was so shaken by this whole event that he wasn't right for months afterwards because Gurdjieff had a very intense personality. So, Gurdjieff used to have his students, you know, they would be working, or like, he called it the work. People would be doing labor, and then they'd have to stop in the middle of whatever they were doing to develop consciousness. There were tons and tons of these sorts of whatever, but he was a very intense guy. Anyway, when I was about, I don't know, 24, I read this essay, although it's not an essay, it was a talk called The Last Hour of Life that Gurdjieff gave. And I mean, you can look at his eyes here and you can see he's a pretty intense looking fella, right? But let's just start reading it because it's very important. Imagine that you have only a few minutes, maybe an hour left to live. Somehow, you have discovered exactly when you will die. What would you do with this precious hour of your stay on earth? Would you be able to complete all the things in this would you be able to complete all your things in this last hour? Do you have a conscious idea about how to do it? Well, what's a conscious idea? What does it mean to have a conscious idea? Ideas have us, don't they? They come and go. This means what? A certain amount of self-awareness to be aware of, number one, what we think, and number two, how we think. And you can't give someone a conscious idea. I mean, I did this exercise for a while, for years, but I couldn't tell you about it. Just like you can't tell a blind person what yellow looks like. You can't describe it. So, would you be able to complete all the things in this last hour? What is there to complete? And letting go your last breath, would you feel satisfaction from knowing that you have done everything possible in this life to fulfill? That you are constantly present, always vibrating, always waiting like the sun is waiting for the father sailor. What does that mean? And letting go your last breath, right? Letting go consciously rather than having your breath taken from you, which is typically what happens. I know when my grandparents died, that breath was taken from them. They weren't consciously letting go their last breath. And would we feel satisfaction from knowing that we've done everything possible in this life to fulfill that we are constantly present, always vibrating, always waiting, being poised for whatever happens? That's what it is. It's about being here. Not about not about trying to change the way things are, but facing whatever comes. In the manifested world, everything has its beginning and its end. In the real world, everything is always present, and one beautiful day, you will be allowed to forget everything and leave the world forever. Freedom is worth 1,000,000 times more than political liberation. The free man, even in slavery, remains a master of himself. What does freedom really mean? Because he's making a delineation here between political liberation, or having no restrictions on oneself, and then self-mastery. Because he regards slavery, which is the opposite of political liberation, isn't it? Because you have no rights and you have no conceptual freedom. But what is freedom? He's talking about self-mastery. The implication that we're not masters of ourselves then is that we're slaves somehow in a different way. And you think about how his premise is that we can't do. And why can't we do? Because thoughts, feelings, and sensations run us, and they dictate how we respond to things, how we react. We don't consciously respond to things, we react. And conscious response comes from what? Seeing these reactions, seeing them over time, and becoming aware of them. Essence itself is not adding anything. It's taking things away. that obscure it. He says, if I give you something, let's say a car, in which there is no fuel, the car cannot move. Your car needs a special fuel, but it is only you who is able to define what kind of fuel is needed and where to get it. No one can tell you. I can't tell you how to do this for yourself. People can point you in the right direction, but it's not the same. Like I talk about my experience, but these are spiritual platitudes to anyone who hasn't tried to do things, right? You have to define yourself, how to digest my ideas to make them yours so that they belong only to you. You see? I did this exercise for years. I can call this mine because I've done it. I do that whole video about vichara and self-observation. We have to make these ours. We have to digest these ideas so that they belong only to us. Gurdjieff used to say that, people need food, not books. He said people can't eat books, right? When you find a teacher, put the book away and follow the teacher. We always prove things for ourselves, right? And you have to determine what it is that your fuel is, or how you are going to find your way to keep yourself motivated to do these sorts of things. How you're going to find a way to fix your attention and to live life with a bit more intensity. So define for yourself how to digest my ideas to make them belong only to you. These have to be yours, and it only comes from doing them, practicing things, trying stuff out, what works. You might find that none of this stuff makes any sense to you, but I feel obligated to share it because it made a big difference for me. So your car cannot work on the same fuel that my car is working. Sorry. Your car cannot work on the same fuel my car is working on. I suggest to you only the primary material. You see, the ideas. You have to get from it what you can use. So more bravely sit down at your steering wheel. The organic life is very fragile. The planetary body can die at any moment. It is always one step from death. And if you could manage to live one more day, it is only a chance accidentally given to you by nature. If you will be able to live even one more hour, you can consider yourself to be a lucky person. From the moment of conception, we are living on borrowed time. Living in this world, you have to feel death each second. So settle all your life affairs, even in your last hour. From the moment of conception, we're living on borrowed time. It's immediately. Now, the idea in Hermeticism, right, is that we descend, the souls descend from the sphere of the fixed stars through all of the subsequent planetary spheres. And then they reach the lunar sphere, the lowest one, the most corporeal, right before the earth, which is where we took our flesh for our bodies. And then we manifest on earth. And if you think about it, from that moment, conception, we've borrowed our flesh. We've borrowed our existence. We're basically paying for life from then on. Every breath we take brings us one step closer to our death. It's almost fixed wherever it is. Everything we can see in our charts, pretty much. We look at life as being basically fated in many ways, or even an accident in others. But that's not what's important. Like Vidius Valens said, God gave us astrology, assuming, whatever. He basically said God gave us the knowledge to know the future, or the ability to know the future, so that we could face whatever comes with greater equanimity, rather than being depressed or overjoyed about what happens. Being able to face things with a greater sense of detachment. So anyway, living in this world, we have to feel death each second. So settle all your life affairs, even in your last hour. But how? But how can anyone know exactly his last hour? How do you know when you're going to die? You don't. For the sense of security, make up your things with nature and yourself in every hour given to you. Then you will never be met unprepared. Making peace in every hour. The man has to, then you will never be caught unprepared. The man has to be taught this, starting from the esoteric school, how to breathe, how to eat, how to move, and how to die right. This has to become part of an educational program. And you see, this is why we do need esoteric groups and esoteric schools and stuff like that. And I've been super lucky to have gotten involved in some of that sort of stuff. But, these things, they over time, we all have our set circumstances. We all have our fate and the directions that life takes us in. But giving people the same opportunity to find some of these teachings is really, really necessary, I think. I don't know what that really looks like in the big scheme of things, really, but there are great groups out there if anyone wants any suggestions, if that's something you're interested in. So, this has to be part of an educational program. In this program, it is necessary to include the teaching about how to realize the presence of I and how to establish consciousness. Question: how to act if you do not feel that there is something unfinished? Gurdjieff answered after a pause. He took a deep breath and replied, ask yourself, who will be in difficulty if you die like a dog? At the moment of death, you have to be wholly aware of yourself and feel that you have done everything possible to use all within your abilities, this life, which was given to you. He says, die like a dog. What does he mean by that? In his philosophy, we die. You just die and you become fodder or manure for the planet. You're basically just brought back into the dirt. But every human has an opportunity in this philosophy to develop, to build their higher bodies. In some esoteric teaching, you already have an astral body and a mental body and all that sort of stuff. Gurdjieff's thing is that you're learning to build up the higher bodies that can take you on into the next sphere or whatever, if you will. I don't know that I necessarily believe any of that stuff, but that is an idea that you're building a soul. In certain traditions, they say, the building not made with hands. That we're building this masterpiece of many lives. But to die like a dog is to just die and become manure for the planet. Whereas to really die, is an honor. And we'll get to that. Ask yourself, who will be in difficulty if you die like a dog? At the moment of death, you have to be wholly aware of yourself and feel that you have done everything possible to use all within your abilities in this life, which was given to you. Now, you don't know much about yourself, but with each day you dig deeper and deeper into this bag of bones and start knowing more and more details. Day by day, you will be finding out what you should have done and what you have to redo among the things that you have done. A real man or real woman or real person, a real human, is one who could take from life everything that was valuable in it and say, and now I can die. We have to try to live our lives so that we could say any day, today I can die, and not be sorry about anything. I can tell you that's a pretty big, tall order for me. What is it like to not be sorry for anything? What is it like to atone and make amends and have all that stuff be reconciled? What is it like not to take things personally? Never spend fruitlessly the last hour of your life because it can become the most important hour for you. If you use it wrongly, you may be sorry about it later. This sincere excitement that you feel can become for you a powerful source of the force that can prepare you for perfect death. knowing that the next hour can become the last one for you. Absorb the impressions which it will bring you as a real gourmet. When Lady Death will call you, be prepared always. The master knows how to take from each tasty piece the last bit of the most valuable. Learn to be the master of your life. Quality. We're so used to just appreciating the appearance of things. How often do we really appreciate multiple dimensions of experience? We let things go. We let impressions go. We take them. We don't ever, Alfred North Whitehead once said, it takes an unusual type of mind to undertake an analysis of the obvious. We miss what's obvious because we take it for granted. We're talking about learning to extract the quality from experiences and from life. Just like you can take quality from food, you can taste the subtle flavors of food, or you can just guzzle it down. It has to do with a sense of quality. Learn to be the master of your life. I always love that. The sincere excitement that you feel now can become for you a powerful source of the force that can prepare you for perfect death. It's so funny how death can be a great motivator. When you start to feel the reality of your own death, the inevitability of it, when you start to feel that your body, even your thoughts and your emotions, are slowly decaying, we can see how our mind gets less quick, how we become a little bit slower and duller over the years and over time. Everything is fleeting. Everything is in a process of passing away as new things arise. What is it that is always there in the background? What's the background upon which all this stuff is always coming and going? It's like the pictures that change on the film, but the film's still there. Or rather, the film that's playing on the screen, but once again, it's upon the backdrop of the screen. What is the screen? Where does that come from? When I was young, I learned to prepare fragrances. I learned to extract from life its essence, its most subtle qualities. This is what I was talking about. Search in everything the most valuable. Learn to separate the fine from the coarse. One who has learned to extract the essence, the most important from each moment, has reached a sense of quality. What does that feel like? Do we stop and feel the air on our skin? Do we taste water? Water has a taste. There's good water and bad water, isn't there? Do we feel our tongues in our mouths, our teeth wedged into our gums? Do we notice our eyeballs, how they feel? Do we notice the meat of our body on our bones? How much time do you spend in your goddamn head? Get out of your head. Be in your body. Be in this thing. Be in this flesh. Oh, be in the slime. Be in your body. Feel it. Be in it here. Be here now. Those stupid hippies from, I have the Ram Dass book somewhere, but all the stupid hippies from the 70s and stuff. Be here now. Remember. There's something to that. Self-remembering. What does it mean to remember ourselves? This is why the one practice I preach is what? Putting your attention on the sensation of self. Because where does that come from? That's the essence. That's a hint to quality. When you can sense that same essence in you, you start to sense it everywhere. Because it's the background. Everything happens upon the background. Just like from the Big Bang, we have the cosmic microwave background. It's like the constant noise, background noise or movement or sound from the original explosion of the universe. if that is such a thing. I mean, it's still a theory, but it's just quite interesting to think about. A sense of quality. If you haven't reached a sense of quality about yourself, how are you going to sense quality in anything else? The quality of the moment. It's a rare and valuable and very, what's the word? Subtle sensation. We're talking about levels of fineness and subtlety, right? Like, we say granularity. You can have river rocks or you can have that chalk that gymnasts use, right? That's very, very fine. And in order to do that, we have to develop sensitivity. In order to develop sensitivity to things, we have to pay attention to little things. It's the little things that kill. Tear my brain out again. Bush. Anyway. But this whole sense of quality thing is really what I'd like to impress upon everyone. And we're so used to throwing things away, throwing impressions away, throwing people away, throwing thoughts away. Feel the impressions. When you're super bored, if you're waiting somewhere in line, it's a great opportunity to remember yourself, or at least try. You should never really be bored. Because when you're trying to throw away your attention, because that's what it is. I do it all the time. Let me throw away my attention. And there's an opportunity in that. For you, for realizing. You could wake up in that fucking moment. Who knows? You could. Or at least a little bit more. To what is. And that only comes from slowly separating by what is not. And that's what death is. And we'll talk more about that. He gets into that. This line, I don't like that. That's not very... So he basically says, we're able to do something in this world that can't be done by... I'm not going to say, but this is at a time when they said awful things. But this is something that we have an opportunity to do as humans, because we have a mind, we have the capacity to think, and the awareness of a self. It could be that in the last moments of your life, you will not have the choice where and with whom to be with, but you will have a choice to decide how fully you will live them. The ability to take the valuable from life is the same as to take from the food, the air, and the impressions, the substances needed to build up your higher bodies. This is what we're talking about using the subtlety of life, right? I just talked about, don't throw impressions away. There's something to extract from everything. Even if you have a terrible reaction, if you're horribly upset by something, that's a wonderful opportunity to see where you are identified. Excuse me. If you want to take from your life the most valuable for yourself, it has to be for the good of the higher. For yourself, it's not enough to leave just a little. To work on yourself for the good of others is a smart way to receive the best from life for yourself, right? That's why Christ was always saying those sorts of things. It's not good enough to work for yourself, right? You're always working on behalf of something higher than yourself, because it's not about you personally. And this isn't about personal attachment. This is about the opposite. This is about learning to relinquish the personal. Not that you have to give anything up in particular necessarily. It's learning how to relinquish that which is personal. Because the personal, the false personality, again, and what do we mean by that? All the conditions, the conditioning, right? Our thoughts, feelings, sensations. C.S. Lewis said, I have a body, but I'm not a body. He also said the fact that I have longings that can't be satisfied by this world is evidence I was made for another. So you see, that's what we're getting at here. It's not good enough to work for yourself, because you yourself are part of a whole. And what you call yourself isn't really yourself. It's a construction. It's a bunch of conditions, associations, experiences, memories, thoughts, feelings, sensations. Basically, a figment of our imaginations. But it's very real to us, and we have to work with it. And we have to figure out our way through this whole labyrinth. And again, it only comes from what? Learning to look and learning to look at ourselves. But we'll get to the crux of this whole thing because we're going through an exercise here. And I really do like this exercise, and I have done it often. Not nearly enough. If you want to take from your life the most valuable for yourself, it has to be for the good of the higher. For yourself, it is enough to leave just a little. Again, very reminiscent of what Jesus said. To work on yourself for the good of others is a smart way to receive the best from life for yourself. Christ always said to be the servant of all, the servant of all. To be the servant of all is a very selfish thing at a certain point because you identify to a certain extent with the pain of others. That's what compassion is. It's awareness of interdependence. That's what it means to be your brother's keeper because you're aware of your fundamental interconnection with them, not in an intellectual way, but in a real, we say intuitive. What's that mean? It's a real understanding, right? Just like you see light, you see things very clearly, or you prove something to yourself, even if it's indirect. Like when you get a math problem, oh, you figured it out. It's when you see something very clearly, and then you can't unsee it. I lost my place because people are texting me. Stop. Ugh. Stop it, stop it, stop it. To die. Oh, hold on. If you will not be satisfied with the last hour of your life, you will not be happy about the whole of your life. It's analogical. How can you be happy about your whole life if you're not even happy about the last hour? Every part is a representation, in a way, of the whole. If you will not be satisfied with the last hour of your life, you will not be happy about the whole of your life. To die means to come through something which is impossible to repeat again. To spend your precious time in nothing means to deprive yourself the opportunity to extract from life the most valuable. In this world, to live life through from beginning to end means another aspect of the absolute. You see what I mean? The part always representative of the whole, and the whole represented in the part. All the greatest philosophers were carefully preparing for the last hour of their life, and now I will give the exercise to prepare for the last hour of life on earth. Try not to misinterpret any word from the given exercise. Here's the exercise. Look back at the hour that is past, as if it were the last hour for you on earth, and that you have just acknowledged that you have died. Ask yourself, were you satisfied at that hour? And now reanimate yourself again, and set up the aim for yourself in the next hour, if you are lucky enough to live one more. Try to extract from life a little more than you did in the last hour. Define where and when you should have been more aware, where you should have put more inner fire. And now open your eyes wider. And by this I mean open more possibilities for yourself. Be a little more brave than you were in the previous hour. Since you know that this hour is your last hour and you have nothing to lose, try to gain some bravery, at least now. Of course, you don't have to be silly about it, charging off this way and doing that. But think about the exercise. Now, it's sort of an imaginative thing, isn't it? And this is how Ramana Maharshi, one of my gurus, had his awakening. It was through his intense fear of death. He basically went through the same thing. He was a rarer kind of person, so it worked out a little bit quicker for him. But I've done this exercise quite a bit. You do your best to put yourself there as much as you can in reality, in your consciousness, in that space of dying, that you've died. Imagining that you're in a hospital bed, that you've just flatlined, that you feel yourself there. You feel that same sort of fear of consciousness ceasing because you don't know. You don't really know what's going to happen. You don't. Everyone acts like they do and have all kinds of big convictions about it, but you don't know. This is an adventure. You need to earn conviction. You earn conviction through awareness, through self-awareness, through remembering yourself. That's where the conviction about it comes from. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of false pretense. You're just assuming things. I don't know about you, but when I'm on my deathbed, no one's going to salve me with the idea of like, oh, Jesus is going to come save you. I don't know. And I won't be satisfied with that. I will only be satisfied by having done as much as I could to know myself, which consequently means knowing everything else or knowing others. Because it's not a selfish thing. It's not a self-oriented thing in the end because it's negating self, isn't it? So, but this exercise is very important to put yourself in that and to look over, to watch at how you lived that last hour and see where you could do better. Arnold Schwarzenegger had an autobiography. I didn't read the whole thing, but he acknowledged some of the mistakes that he made, where he had cheated on his wife and had a kid out of wedlock and all that sort of stuff. And he said, I've made some mistakes, but I don't dwell on them. I apologize, I atone, I try to reconcile, and then I resolve to do better next time. And that's a very healthy sort of attitude. I'm sure people will be like, oh, whatever. But it's a very healthy attitude because we don't force ourselves to stay put, and to get static and crystallized and unyielding and unmoving. We always are moving. If we're not moving, if we're not progressing, we're regressing. It's ultimately all relative, but you see what I'm saying? If we're not making effort, we're tending towards entropy, right? We're tending towards disorder. Speaking of disorder, I've got a disorder. Sorry. And now open your eyes wider. This is the best part for me. Define where and when you should have been more aware and where you should have put more inner fire. Living life intensely, right? And not like with a sense of urgency, but with a sense of passion that we are tasting things. We're not just going off on autopilot. Even when the pain happens, to learn to feel it and stay with it. Get to know yourself better. Look at your machine as if from the outside. That was Gurdjieff's other thing. This is a machine. This is mechanical. It's just operating according to mechanical laws. And consciousness is just along for the ride, right? He would say that, we're basically like a carriage full of a bunch of different people on the inside. One guy's driving and whipping the horses. Someone gets up from the carriage and beats him down and takes the whip, and then he takes over, right? Someone else whips him, right? And it's this never-ending struggle between these conflicting, eyes or thoughts, feelings and sensations or desires or whatever. We're not one, and we're constantly in conflict, right? We're constantly in conflict with ourselves, and everyone's a contradiction. Get to know yourself better. Look at your machine as if from the outside. Now, when you are dying, there's no reason to keep your reputation or your prestige. And now onwards, until the real last hour, aspire with persistence to receive the most you can from life that is valuable. Develop your intuition. Take just a few minutes each hour to watch at the hour that passed without judgment. And then tune yourself to extracting more from the following hour. The judgment part's hard. We always judge ourselves. And we have no right to judge ourselves because we don't even know ourselves properly, let alone anyone else. If we look at each hour like a, if we look at each hour like at a separate life unit, you can try to do as much as you can to use every unit totally. Force yourself and find the way to make the next hour much more than the one before. But also be aware that you have taken care of the debts you've collected till now. Right? We're always paying for life. Right? We're accumulating our very action. Karma, what the Buddha called karma, is just action. It's volition. So being aware that we're paying back for what we've taken. And that's different for everyone. The debts that we've collected till now. Increase the self-sensing and self-knowledge of yourself. Right? This is self-sensing. Using your attention, putting it on you, putting your attention on the sense of I. That's self-sensing. Feel your fucking body, right? Be in here. Get out of your head. Feel the air on your skin, the little minute sensations that happen all over. People call this mindfulness now in corporate settings, but this is self-sensing. Increase the self-sensing and self-knowledge of yourself, and also increase the ability to master yourself. That's what this is. This will change the work of your machine, which is always out of your control. What do I always say? You can't change your patterns, but you can learn to let the light in, which is the light of attention, which comes from observation, from learning to look. This is self-sensing. This will change the work of your machine, which is always out of your control. And these abilities can become the indication of real changes. You can't do anything at first but look. But after a while, you start to notice things are happening. You start to notice that you're not as reactive or crazy as before. You start to notice you're not taking things as personal, perhaps. And these abilities can become, and it is absolutely unimportant what the machine is thinking about this, right? This is when we start to feel sorry for ourselves, right? We all do. God, this sucks. Why do I hate this? Why do I hate this? That's why Gurdjieff would say, oh, it hates this. It's hating that. It's upset. Referring to the machine as it. So we started to become less personal about it. We're more impersonal to it, right? To live the rest of your life rehearsing your death hour by hour is not at all pathological. None can receive more from life than the cancer patient, who knows approximately when he will die. And since he already recognized that how he wishes to spend the rest of his life, he will not have to make the total change in it, but he will be able to go somewhere where he always wished to go, but would not do it in any other circumstance. Man who knows that he will die soon will try to use the maximum every hour of the rest of his life. This is exactly what Christ meant when he said that the last days will come soon, the days before the last judgment. We are all standing in front of the judge, but it is not the judge, or it's not others who are judging us, but we ourselves do in the last estimation of our life. We are the final judge. In the end, we have to decide, wow, was I? I just said you don't have a right to judge yourself, but in your last hour, you will judge whether you were satisfied with it or not. We do not have to fail the most important examination, where the most serious judge is ourselves. Each moment, taken alone, represents the particle of the eternal creation. Therefore, each moment we can extract the most subtle substances that we can call the essence of life. This is what I was talking about before, learning to appreciate the most subtle parts of each moment, the most subtle sensations, right? Learning to develop a sense of quality. Imagine yourself the substance air. or the substance impressions we just talked about. Don't throw those away. Finally, draw in your mind the substance moments. Yes, even the moments of time are the very substances, right? If we will be able to extract the finest substances from the coarser, sooner or later we will have to pay for it. This law is called the law of balance. That is why we will learn how to pay immediately for those things that we receive from life. Only then we will not have any. Only then will we not have any debts. To pay immediately, this is called real doing. To do is to think, to feel, to act. But real doing is to pay immediately. And that'll mean something different for everyone. I mean, we get this morbid idea that we pay for things through pain and suffering. Sometimes that's true, but mostly unconscious suffering it doesn't do anything. It's not paying anything. It's just creating pain. It's conscious doing and an intentional suffering for a purpose, a conscious purpose. Again, going back to the beginning, do you have a conscious idea? You have to get a conscious idea by practicing trying to be conscious. By experiencing these things, by being a scientist with consciousness, right? We're learning to practice and test and try things out. You know, if you don't try to do this exercise, you'll just say it's a bunch of nonsense. You know, I even said it was sort of a waste of time in the beginning, and then I did it over and over and over again because I'm like, well, this is stupid. Let's see how stupid it is. But then I've had some really wild epiphanies from all this too. And it does sort of encourage you to treat life with a bit more reverence. To do may mean only one thing: extract the essence from each moment of life, and at the same moment, pay all the debts to nature and yourself. But only when you have I can you pay immediately. This is what I mean. You can't pay if it's not conscious. And Gurdjieff always talked about I versus real I, right? And he's talking about real I here, not just the personality. Sorry. Real life is not a change of activity, but a change of the quality of the activity, right? This is why I say it doesn't matter what you do, it's how you do it. You can be taking a shit and you can bring as much livingness and yourself, the essence of you, livingness. I don't know how else to say it, right? That same sense of life that courses through things, that if you're following me, you probably have had an experience of at some point or another. The awareness of everything breathing and moving. Everything's in motion in relation to you. And you are in relation to everything else. The change of the quality of the activity. Washing the dishes. You can bring so much. I can't think of a better word than livingness. You can bring so much life and quality to mundane little things. Every moment is pervaded by the magic and the presence of the divine, if you want to go there, if you want to take it that way. The presence of the whole, of the all, of whatever, the one life, whatever you want to say. Your source. How about that? Your source. It's a more neutral term. Oh, it scares me. Real life is not a change of activity, but the quality of the activity. Destiny is destiny. Each one of us has to find out for himself or herself or their self in the whole order of things. It's a sense of being. Where do you exist in the scale of existence, right? Sense of humility comes from a sense of scale. It's not too late yet to start doing it now, although you've spent the greater part of your life in sleep. Starting from today, you can begin to prepare yourself for death and, at the same time, to increase the quality of your living. But don't delay with the start. Maybe you only really have just one more hour of life. Question: can we share this with others? I think it's very important, what we've heard about this evening. You could retell it word by word. But until you can do this exercise yourself, it would mean nothing for others. Existence is the means or the instrument for action. Think about this and you will find out why it is so. So the only reason I am doing this is because I've done it for long enough to where I can talk about it. Existence is the means or instrument for action. What does that mean? It means your being, how you exist. Your existence is the capacity for action. How you exist determines, your being determines your expression. So that means your existence is the instrument for how you express, for how you act. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, as Christ said. Right? He also said, a man or a woman or a person, right? Or a trans woman, a man from the good treasure of her heart brings forth that which is good. Whereas a woman from an evil woman from the evil treasure of her heart brings forth that which is evil. You see, existence is the means for action. Our action in the world will be representative of our existence. Now that's okay, and we're going to do stupid shit because we're all awful, evil people. That's fine. Remember Oscar Wilde said, like, oh, we all live in the gutter, but some of us are looking at stars. I mean, you could take that as being, some of us are working on this, right? Christians will say, oh, we're all sinners. They'll say, oh, we're all sinners, and then blame other people for their sins and not themselves, right? That's not Christianity. That's stupidness and that's hate. What we mean when we're saying we're all sinners is acknowledging, right, that we're all fallible, that none of us have it, that none of us have escaped the identifications and the illusion of these worlds, that we're all still living in waking sleep. I lost my train of thought here. I'm not going to lie. Oh, I was talking about this exercise. Anyway, you have to make this real for yourself. It took me a long time. And then when you can really put yourself in that space, like, oh shit, I've died. I had an experience once where I felt it so acutely. I felt like I just lost my best friend or something. And I was so overcome with grief. It was the most uncanny thing because it was so real. But then it wasn't like I was asking myself the question, but I was just like feeling, what is it that dies? Like, who is it that really dies? Anyway. But until you will do this exercise, it's just a bunch of nonsense. It's a bunch of spiritual platitudes. You can tell people all day, and there's tons of these idiots out there who, do this spiritual content creation or astrology stuff. But if you haven't had a sense of the reality of these fucking things, it's worthless. It's platitudes. It's fantasy and it's deception. And you don't have any business repeating it to people if you haven't had it, if it hasn't become real to you in some way. And you can only tell if it's become real by the force or the gravity with which you can talk about it or express it. Or maybe you can't. I couldn't talk about this for years. Anyway, think about why this is so. Now, therefore, we cannot pay the debts if we do not exist or if our eye is absent. And Gurdjieff answers. So this person is saying, so wait, we can't pay our debts if we don't really exist, or if we're not properly conscious, well, we can't really pay. Now Gurdjieff's answer is, why do you have such a need to pay? Pay for what? If life is only a coincidence, then there's no sense to go on. And this is what life is when we're not conscious, or when we're unfolding. Really, it's a big accident. Things just happen. Shit happens. It's a bunch of stuff that happens. I got to take that word out with the SUI. Why do you have such a need to pay? Pay for what? If life is only a coincidence, there's no sense to go on. This does not mean that you have to end your life with the S word. Opposite. You have to put all your effort into to live. Ordinary man always lives, just going with the flow. He's not just sleeping, he's absolutely dead. To really live, it is necessary to support the efforts of nature, to take actively from life and not passively wherever it flows. Ordinarily, we just live because we're afraid of life. Where does the fear of life come from? From this. Not from well, I mean, not from the slime or from the essay in particular. Oh, this is sorry. Ah, ah. Anyway, not from this essay, not from the slime or this essay in particular. But I totally lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Oh, we just live. We just live, and we're afraid of life because we have this mistaken misconception that we are at stake. And this is why this exercise is so important, because I don't care who you are, there is a fear of death. The idea that consciousness could just cease and we'd just be gone is terrifying. You've never known a time when you weren't here, have you? Right? So this is very exciting, because this is like, wow, I have another moment. I have another opportunity. I have more time. You can't just rest on the fact that you have more time. You don't know. But this is exciting. We're on the verge of a new discovery. It's a new moment. We're new people, right? It's like waking up in an entirely new space. We ordinarily just let life happen. And this is talking about taking a whole different stance. To really live, it is necessary to support the efforts of nature, seeing how we relate to other things. And, it's so funny because if you talk to conventionally religious people, they won't really appreciate that so much. Extracting from life the most precious, you have to be able to operate your emotions. See how fairly you can estimate yourself. Look attentively at yourself, and you will see many remarkable ways to be fair. Each time, notice for yourself different moments when the desires appear. Act as before, but always be aware of their presence. You can't control your desires yet. All you can do is see them. Let them happen, but be aware of their presence. Transport to the world the part of your blood, but one of the higher level. We have to learn how to touch the world with that part of ourselves, that finer part of ourselves. That's what draws things together. Christ said, if I be lifted up, will draw all people into me. Right? At the end of each hour, after you have estimated its usefulness, imagine that you just woke up in the absolutely unknown in comparison to the previous one gone by. It is important to note that the apparent continuation of the last hour is in reality changing with every hour, although things and people seem the same as before. With time, you will learn to see yourself as a spiritual of special substance who is coming from one world to another as an uninvited guest of nature. Looking from this point of view, evaluate everything you do in your life, looking at the results of all your efforts of the past, and think what sense they all have now in the last hour of your life. Those who are engaged in this work are dead to this world, and yet they are more alive in it than anyone else. Work, something strange, imperceptible, but for many it is impossible to live without it. I couldn't live without this. There would be no point. There would be no point without investigating consciousness, existence. I'd have no reason for being. Being is the reason for being, isn't it? But you see, without this work, life would be just meaning. I wouldn't have any reason to go on. But yet it's here because existence is. The ordinary way of understanding life is vanity of vanities. However big the result, However big the result is, according to earthly measures, sooner or later it will fail. Even the sand is being rubbed into time or dust by time. Even the most significant people of history are being forgotten. To understand the real possibilities of this world, it is necessary to find what we can reach in this world. It's To understand the real possibilities of this world, it is necessary to find what we can reach in this world that will be very useful in the real world. What is that, pray tell? Love. Love is what is useful that you can learn here and what is very useful in the real world. Love. You could die at any moment. Even your enemies, even when you have to do terrible things, we can release people with love. And love is the recognition that we are all interdependent. It's a progressive recognition, a progressive realization. We see things unfold before us progressively. It's not like you just behold the whole in an instant flash. These are things that gradually unfold before us, you know? We start to get clearer views and vision over time, and you could probably verify that in your own experience. Just like these big lips. My slime lips. My slime lips. You could probably verify that for yourself. Um, Love is what I was talking about. I lose my train of thought so much. I'm so sorry. It's not really a train, it's more like a. Love is what is useful. And love frees debts. It releases us from debts, doesn't it? And we're told to right? Forgive us our debts as we forgive those who owe debts to us, right? That's the Lord's Prayer. Excuse me. Um, Attentively look at the lives of all the greatest people, those who were commanding armies, who had power over others. What is the benefit from them, from all their great actions now when they are dead? Even when they were alive, all these great actions were no more than empty dreams. We are not here to praise ourselves and prove ourselves. The most disgusting in the ordinary man has the ability to quickly satisfy his flesh. I love quickly satisfying my flesh, that's for sure. The majority of people will find many excuses not to work on themselves. They're in a complete prison of their weaknesses. But right now, we do not speak about them, but about you. Understand me right. I do not need followers. I am rather interested in finding the good organizers, the real warriors of the new world. I understand the weakness of the organization because right now we do not speak about the usual organization, which would consist of initiates. I remind you once again, learn to live each of your hours with a bigger benefit. Create a detailed plan of the last hour of your life. To understand how one should die, you should grow deep roots into life. Only then will you be able to die like a human being and not like a dog. Although it is not given to everyone to die. You can become manure for the planet, but it does not mean to really die. To die to this world forever is an honor. For this honor, you have to pay with conscious labor and intentional suffering. This exercise is an example of conscious labor. You just have to start trying to do things. I mean, we all find our way. All roads lead to Rome eventually. And no one can tell you which is the right way to go or what to do or what will resonate with you. And I'm sharing this because this resonated with me when I was quite young. But then again, I'm sort of morbid and I'm always sort of stuck on death. So this might seem interesting to some of you and it'll seem completely stupid to others. So try to imagine yourself relatively clearly the last hour of your life on earth. Write a kind of a script of this last hour, as if you were writing the script for a film. Ask yourself, is this how I want to dispose of my life? If you are not satisfied with the answer, rewrite the script till you like it. Use me. This part. Look at life like a business. Time is your money for life. When you came into this world, a definite amount of time or amount of money was given to you, and this you could not exceed. Time is the only currency with which you pay for your life. Now you see how you use the biggest part of it in a stupid way. You have not even reached the main goal of life, which is to have rest. You have failed as a businessman. And as a user of life, you've deceived yourself. All of your life, you thought that everything was given to you for free. And now suddenly you've discovered that it is not. You pay for using the time. And that's why each moment of your stay here costs something. So how would it be possible for you to reimburse, recover at least some of these losses? Check if the deficit on your bank account is only temporary, or is it perhaps constant? Did you lose the time, or could you invest it successfully? If you have spent all your money on vacations, then there is nothing to do but be sorry about the past. That's the thing, right? Until we realize it. Once we realize it, then it's like, oh my God, wow, how much time did I waste? You know, and I'm still wasting all the time. Oh, no pun intended. All the time I'm wasting all the time. Anyway, for many years, you have been spending. For many years, you have been spending your life as if your parents had gave you a bank account with unlimited credit. But now the moment is used. Oh, but now the amount is used, and you see that you are all alone, and that there's none to rely on. There is no more time on your bank account. Now you are forced to earn each hour of your life. All your life you've behaved like a child and spent time just like a newly married couple on their honeymoon. Our main enemy, which is hindering us from applying the necessary efforts, is hopelessness. And I talked about hope yesterday a little bit. I know you will have many excuses not to prepare yourself for the last hour of your life. I got plenty right now. The habit is a big force. But starting once, you can learn to do each time more and more. The habit is a big force. Creating this habit is a big force. Don't fiddle all day. Force yourself at least 1 hour a day to make an effort. Otherwise, you will lose everything. Think about the rehearsal of your last hour as if it were a ballet exercise. You have to do it all your life. I dedicate 4 hours a day to this exercise, but when I was young, I spent on it 2 times longer. I'm not suggesting that at all whatsoever, but if you can, at the last part of your day before you go to bed or at some point in the day, just look back at the last hour and do what he said and evaluate. Am I satisfied with that? Almost like a review, like a mini review every day. You could do it at night, an evening review. How did that go? What could I have done better? How, evaluate as if it had the same gravity, as if you had died, and that's the way you would be remembered. And remember, it doesn't matter what you do. It remembers how you do it and who you are and what you bring to the moment. Rumi, the famous Sufi poet, Rumi said, wherever you are, be the soul of that place. You bring soul to that place. You're bringing life and livingness. You're bringing life to form, to your bodies. Be the life for your bodies, even. Don't be dead to your bodies. Let them run you. We don't have a choice. They're going to run us. But we can learn to see it, and the light is what changes things. So I'm not suggesting you spend so much time on this exercise, but I suggest that you try it and do it maybe once a day. And I'll start doing it again with you. I do it sort of sporadically, but I've got to do it more often because I preach the heck out of these exercises, and I don't want to be um, a hypocrite too much, although I am. So yeah. Anyway, well, that's the essay, and we're at 6:23. So if anyone wants to put up their charts, we can look at some charts. At I mean, this thing made such a big impression on me when I was a young occultist when I was 22, 23. And I remember the teacher that first read it, you know. He'd had a near death experience, he'd lost a leg. And in that experience, everyone's still terrified of death, which is really being terrified of life in a way. But his experience showed him, um, it showed him who really died. It showed him the reality of that sense of consciousness. I mean, obviously we're conscious and aware, but that consciousness isn't limited, right? It isn't limited to our thoughts, feelings, and sensations. It's not necessarily limited in all the ways we thought it was limited, but that's the way we're experiencing it when we experience ourselves, thus limited, as limited. And again, these all are stupid spiritual platitudes. And I'm just suggesting all you do is just learn to practice looking. And it's a practice, and it's a very difficult practice. It's not like, oh, I gave it a look and it didn't work. No, it's like a meditation practice. You have to learn to use your attention. Our attention sucks. You can barely keep your attention on, the slime. You're listening to me and you can barely keep your attention on me speaking. You're probably doing other things. And you have to be aware of that. You have to be aware of the limits to attention. Oscar Wilde, yeah, I know, right? I'm so right? Well, thank you. You throw people away and you wish you didn't. Yeah, well, we all throw people away, you know? And this is not the sort of thing to lament, right? Like he said in the essay, like, this sincere excitement that you feel, like I get excited when I read that essay, obviously. I get excited. And he says this sincere excitement can become for you a powerful source of the force to work towards perfect death. And so you probably saw, like it's a long thing to read, but I get very pumped up reading that because this is your life. And it's ending 1 minute at a time, right? Like Fight Club, Tyler Durden. And there's so much that I wish I could do. And there's so much I don't do out of fear, out of laziness, out of, what's the word? Inertia. The inertia of personality, the inertia of being a personal being, the inertia of having a separated self, right? The inertia of desire. I don't want this. I want that. I don't like this. I like that. And we're slaves to it because it's not conscious. You have natal Mercury retrograde in Taurus, like me. I do too. Does this mean that its transit this month is positive for you? Well, what house do you have? What house is Taurus for you? What's your rising sign, my sweet? What's your rising sign? Let me put the chat over here. Oh, excuse me. Where'd the chat go? I want to see the chat. Here it is. Here's the chat. Well, what you have to tell me what your rising sign is. Oh, excuse me. In Mercury retrograde, the big thing about Mercury retrograde, the retrograde turns things on their heads, brings stuff up from the past. We revisit the past. Your rising sign is Virgo, so Taurus will be your ninth house, right? Yeah, ninth house. Capricorn's your fifth house, and your ninth house would be Taurus. So Mercury's gonna be in your ninth house. That's not bad at all. It's always a nice. See, Mercury transits, they're really fast. um, except for the retrogrades. And then, when Mercury goes retrograde and stays in the same sign for a while, but still they're pretty quick. So this could be sort of a philosophical little time where your attention gets drawn or pulled to more esoteric subjects, astrology and the occult and stuff like that. So that could be a part of it for sure. But, the whole retrograde bit, for everyone, it's pretty standard. Well, you're Virgo rising too, so Mercury rules your rising sign. Oh, and you have natal Mercury in the ninth house then too, right? Which is um, sort of cool, philosophical and such. Let me move this over here so you can see. There we go. And so Mercury rules the first house and is in your ninth. Having your first house rule the ninth, like I am, well, like I do, first house ruler in the ninth house means that God, spirituality, religion, and philosophy are the driving force of your life. This is what makes life meaningful for us. We're on a quest for meaning, and we're not satisfied with other people's meaning. This is about the spiritual quest, the journey. Having the first house ruler in the ninth house are people who need to understand, who want to understand existence and that sort of stuff. So it'll be a good little transit, I'm sure. But Mercury retrograde, again, Mercury rules business, it rules communications, contracts, all that sort of stuff. So that's why people always say, oh yeah, don't sign anything. Don't finalize things. Any sort of agreements, people can come back later and say, well, that's not what I said. Um, People can, renege on commitments they've made and things like that. So they always say don't make commitments so much during Mercury retrograde, because I hate when slime has hair in it. Everything gets hair in it. There's hair in the slime. Ugh. There's cat hair everywhere. Everything has cat hair in it. Oh, and there's some of my hair too. Well, that's cat hair. Ugh, I hate cat hair. I love the cats, but their hair is just like everywhere. Anyway, so so they say don't sign anything, don't finalize any agreements, right? Because stuff will get turned around. You could also see like what exes come back up. They say, I mean, that's more of a pop astrology thing, but you could see like ex partners and people asking for money and stuff like that. Um, but as far as other stuff, I mean, it rules your first house. Where's Gemini again for you? Where's Gemini? Your 10th house, right? Yeah, your 10th house. So, you have your 10th house ruler in the ninth house too. So that's interesting. Maybe you're into academia. I don't know. Crystal, I struggle not being able to do as much and as you feel you should. Your sixth house, sun and cat moon, but now you're physically disabled and can't find a way to feel connected. And that's a difficult. Oops, let me put this over here. Right, and like I said, it's not about what you do; it's how you do it, and you can bring livingness to whatever you do. If you can't, I mean, you do what you can where you are. And that's what astrology is all about. It's not about an idealized version of anything. It's about reality. I don't know how many times I can say the F word and not get in trouble. I'm not even monetized yet, but I'm trying to get there because Facebook sucks and they stopped paying me. And I have to I have to pay for things, right? I have to pay all my debts, to pay my rent and my food. So, and my daughter. So, so you see, we still have to go on living no matter what our circumstances are. And it's about the quality of the activity, not the activity itself, like Gurdjieff said. It's the quality of our living. And by quality, it's how aware are we? I mean, stuff might suck. And it will suck. It's not about this toxic positivity nonsense where you just got to pretend to be happy. Spiritual people just act like they're happy even when they're not. I know because I did that stuff. I did that shit. I've been in spiritual groups since I was young. I'm about to be 40. I'm still young ish. Although a bunch of you Zoomers be like, yeah, boomer. Okay, boomer. Okay, boomer. you know, like, I'm not a boomer. I'm a millennial. I'm just an elder millennial. You know, so, but, but you see, it's the circumstances that we don't have any control over. And you just have to appreciate that you don't have any control over it and forgive yourself to a certain extent. But then you have to, what Gurdjieff used to say was, you have to learn where to be merciful with yourself and also where to be ruthless with yourself. And that just, it's determined by how much you want it. How important is this to you? The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, or Patanjali, whatever you want to call him, he says that the the important variable here is intensity, the amount of passion and attention you are putting towards this path or this stuff. And I can tell you from experience that we burn ourselves out pretty quickly. And it's better to have a little bit of effort that you put on consistently and regularly all the time over the course of, a little bit each day. You struggle not to. So anyway, yeah, I mean, you're physically disabled. And one of my dear brothers in my spiritual group, she lives in Bolivia, and she's bound to a wheelchair. And she is the most amazing, deep, spiritual, loving, caring, mucho fuerza, mucha fuerza, like a lot of strength, a lot of power, and she's confined to a wheelchair. And it's about the quality of, she translates, all these spiritual documents into other languages. I'm not saying that you have to do anything in particular, but it's not about what you do. It's the livingness that you bring to it and the realization you bring to it. When you're stuck there in your situation where you can't do much, you can still look at yourself. You can learn to watch thoughts, feelings, and sensations. And you can learn how to put your attention on that sense of being you. That is the most mysterious thing. I don't know about you. When I was a kid, I think I've talked about this experience before. I was just mesmerized. I was mystified by the fact that I was here. The fact that I was even conscious. I was enthralled by it. It was so rare, so subtle, but so loud and so fine and so curious and so strange and yet so ordinary because it's always there. So, and I'm not trying to be, Cat Moon is shitty. I'm not going to lie. It's rough. It's hard to be aware of your emotions when you're a cat moon because you avoid them. But you see, this is your lot. This is your lot in life. Okay. This is your lot in life. Taurus in the ninth house. Taurus sun in the ninth house. Oh, so you're Virgo rising then too. And Aqua moon in the sixth house. So she has a sixth house sun, and you have a sixth house moon. Yeah, and the health challenges and stuff from the sixth house, that's pretty typical too, and I'm so sorry about that. So that means Leo is the 12th house, right? So the sun rules the 12th house and is in the sixth. So you're a Virgo rising too. Your sun rules the 12th house and is in the ninth. The moon. Wait, no. The 11th. I'm so sorry. Leo. And then Virgo. Yeah. So Cancer, it would be the 11th. So the moon rules the 11th and is in the 6th. Where should you be looking at your chart for this upcoming Mercury retrograde? Well, so Taurus is the ninth house. That's where you should be looking in your chart. Mercury rules your first house and your 10th house. So, this is a significant thing because Mercury rules your angular houses. So this retrograde in particular, I mean, it is, significant for you. But remember, Mercury goes retrograde all the time. You're not going to time your life by it. It's just that you have to be careful, right, about your physical health. It could cause some devitalization. You could feel run down, less energy, that sort of stuff. And then you could see stuff probably slow down a bit at work or take more effort. Like it seems like things start piling up and like you get overwhelmed. But remember, it's just temporary. So the overwhelmed thing, yeah, I mean, that's kind of an unfortunate side effect. Oh, excuse me. But if you have Mercury retrograde in your natal chart like I do, I mean, you're sort of used to being misunderstood all the time, aren't you? And that's the thing, is misunderstandings abound, right? Um, Crisscross communication, misunderstandings, delayed messages. I didn't get your text. I didn't see your email, all that kind of fun stuff. But, you don't need to look at it as a big, super profound thing. It's pretty typical, pretty standard. So, um, but yeah, I mean, for you both, being that it's sort of well, it's both going to be your ninth house, but that Mercury rules angular houses is quite important. So take care of your health and take care of your reputation. Don't push yourself too hard and don't do anything that you wouldn't want to see, you know, broadcasted on the internet, on Twitter in front of everyone or whatever, on public. Yeah, don't do anything you wouldn't want to be known for in public or dragged for. I mean, we all do stupid stuff, but this is, regarding this particular transit. Because the retrogrades can turn things upside down a bit. Anyone else have anything about the Mercury retrograde? We can look at that a teeny bit. I'll pull up the chart. I'll pull up the chart. Here I am, rock you like a hurricane. Here I am. Oh, excuse me. Here I am. Why is it doing this? You go over here. There we go. Okay. And animate. Dude. There we go. Now, why is it not? I hate solar fires sometimes. Anyway, so. Now, Mercury. There he goes. Oh, wait. Where are you? Oh, the 11th. Wasn't it? Where did you go? Why am I so wrong? Oh, there. He's stationing there. So he stations retrograde on the 21st. So let's go hours. So, well, I mean, here, this is Libra rising. So the Mercury retrograde will be in your 8th house. So, this is revisiting debts, revisiting things that you owe, revisiting things you've left undone, that you got to take care of for other people, stuff that you put off that you didn't do or you didn't handle. So for Libra rising, there's something you left. I mean, usually it's a money thing or a debt thing, but it's owing something to someone you got to go back and settle, right? Let's see, Scorpio rising, that puts it in your 7th house. So this could be the phenomenon of like, where you get old partners coming back in the picture trying to say stuff, that kind of thing. People that you left behind. You can see ex-spouses, exes, whatever. Communications from them. Because Mercury's communication, like a text, a call, a direct message, an email. So, what else? Oh, Sag rising. So this puts it in your 6th house. This could be to deal with enemies, people you don't like that come back up, a bully or, someone you don't like that rears their stupid head again. Or it could be a condition, a chronic condition that sort of comes back up you have to deal with. Or a health condition, you know, a test result. Now, Capricorn, right? Yeah. Capricorn puts it in the fifth house. So this again could be a romantic partner or love affair that someone comes back up and wants a booty call. Or it could be something to do with your kids that you hadn't addressed. So um, it could be something that you thought you'd addressed, and now it's like, oh, I didn't do that right, and I have to go back and handle it. So I don't know. I mean, it could think about stuff that have to do with your kids. It could be a sports camp or a school related activity or who knows. But something you have to go back and fix that didn't get taken care of properly. Aquarius rising, this is me. So it's our fourth house. This could be unfortunate stuff to do with our parents. Getting um, getting some unwanted communications from our parents and stuff like that over issues that we thought were done. You know, um, you don't want to commit to anything around your parents, that's for sure. I mean, I never do anyway, so I never want to, rather. I mean, I usually end up doing it even when I don't want to. Excuse me. Now, Pisces rising, so that's the third house, which is great because, well, this can be difficult for being misunderstood, you know? It might feel like you're speaking in the language to people. And like, why don't people get this? Um, your own speech could feel stifled. It feels just like you're not very articulate, things like that. And again, like I said, agreements and committing to things. Because this house also has to do with friends and extended family. So just be careful about telling people you'll be places or do things at a specific time because you'll have a very high likelihood of flaking out. So just be aware of that. And you'll justify it. You'll have good reasons for yourself. Aries rising. So that goes to the second house. So you might have to revisit things you have to pay for you didn't pay for. So just be aware of that. Um, um, I mean, on the positive side, it could be on a positive side, it could be something like something costs less, a reduction in cost in something. But I think it more has to do with money that you have to pay, or something that you didn't realize you had to pay. An expense that has to be revisited. And then Taurus rising in the first house. So this could also be doing having to do with health. So, attending to a condition, or maybe there was a doctor's appointment you had, or whatever, and you have to go back and deal with those results. Um, Mercury also rules the fifth and the second houses. So this could also reflect your personal finances and even your relationship to your children, right? Which your health can affect both of those things, right? Because you can either be more or less available, and you can either have more or less money depending on what you have to pay for. So those are all. I mean, that's a brief little rundown. Oh wait, did I get out? I didn't do Gemini, did I? So that would be the 12th house. You want to be careful about secrets and deception and things like that with this. It could be that someone who was deceiving you, things come out, or you realize, right, that someone was deceiving you. Or it could be that you don't really realize about the deception until Mercury goes direct again. But you see, there's something actively happening behind the scenes that is obscuring your vision and giving you a false impression. And then Cancer rising, so that makes it the 11th house. So, you might have miscommunications with your friends, or you might feel like you're not getting, you're not getting support in some certain endeavor or whatever. And then with this, Mercury rules the third and the 12th. So it brings in themes of addiction and mental health and stuff like that too. So, um, you might have, I hope you don't, people might have relapses perhaps, or might be tempted towards that way if they are recovering. Or friends might be having addiction issues, or friends might be having mental health issues, that sort of thing. Now, Leo rising puts it in your 10th house. So expect delays with your work, your businesses, promotion. If you're expecting a promotion or a raise or something, that's going to be delayed or put somewhere off in the future a little bit. Or it may not even happen. To be honest, things might be, it's retrograde. They're reversed. So your luck may be reversed with that a bit. You may have old bosses coming back into your life, old bosses that say, oh, there's a job here. Hey, I got this opportunity. Whereas the same thing with the 11th house is old friends, right? And then the 12th house is old traumas. The first house you could see is your old self coming back up. So, who else? And then we did Virgo, right? We started with Virgo. Did we? We talked about Virgo. Yeah. Old priests. I need an old priest and a new priest. Like The Exorcist. But the 9th house, our philosophy and things, you might be reflecting or revisiting a way you used to think or a view you used to have. Could also be reflecting a teacher. So. Let's see if there's any more questions. You have natal Mercury retrograde in Taurus. What about 8th house Taurus ruler in the 7th? Would you please recommend any website that allows me to see the compatibility with my new partner? Astro.com. You could do everything on Astro.com. So, anyway, please like the stream. I don't think anyone did. Ugh. Like the stream. I have to go. I thought this was worthwhile, though. This was an important thing to talk about. So, anyway, I love you all, and I'm going live on Sunday again, and I'll have more stuff to talk about. I'll probably talk about more interesting stuff for you, like the moon and the syzygies and aspects and, and Uranus